Just waiting for the.
Okay. All good to go?
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. In the absence of Acting Mayor Woolley, I'm sitting in the chair for this meeting. The Sorell Planning Authority meeting, and just note everyone's attendance, thank you, and note apologies.
Through the chair, Deputy Mayor, Acting Mayor Woolley, and apology from Councillor Campbell are the two that I've heard from.
Thank you. Confirmation of the minutes of the 14th of May. The recommendation is that minutes be approved, and I'm going to move in a second, please. Thank you, Councillor Nichols and Councillor Trennings. All in favour? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Declarations of pecuniary interest. Are there any interest to be declared for this item? No, I'll take that as no. Thank you very much. In considering the following land use planning matters, the Sorell Planning Authority intends to act as a planning authority under the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993. Item 5.1 is development application DA 2024-33-1. The applicant Arani Proprietary Limited. I ask for someone to move the recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Nichols, and a seconder. Thanks, Councillor Gatehouse. I'll open to the floor for questions.
Maybe I'll
Thank
start.
you. Thank you. Councillor Merrick is out of the room.
Thank you. A question for Shane, please, for the planner. It's about compliance in the long term. If this is approved as is and the lights get modified, what are the what's the reach of council to keep that in place in the long term and to actually make that happen?
Through the chair, what I would expect that the owner operator will install the shrouds in a reasonable time frame. It is, after all, something that they've suggested that thrown into the mix. As per any other planning condition, we do have recourses through planning tribunal to take action, and we can issue monetary fines and various other measures. We will just keep an eye on this one. So we have a number of sites that we monitor for their ongoing planning compliance. We'll do the same for this.
So what I'm hearing is that it's not totally certain that if there's a condition with the approval that it will actually happen. So
no, conditions must be met. Yeah. In the worst scenario, in the sense of an argument over conditions, for want of a better word, yeah, we would go to a court or tribunal to seek orders for X, Y, and Z to be undertaken. That's the worst the worst type of compliance action, because it's expensive and messy, obviously, but there is that option, and ultimately that is a court order to do things.
thank you. If I may, another question. The other question is about setting a precedent. So I have great concern about proponents building beyond what has been approved and then coming back. So they get a permit for certain things that comply with the planning scheme and everything. And then they come for, and then they build more and come back for approval like this. So setting a precedent like this is what's worrying for me. So what are your comments about that? Yes.
Through the chair. Look, in this instance, we've gone through quite a bit of effort in terms of understanding what could be done. So that we engaged our lawyers to have a look into what was appropriate action. And we're also guided by Council's enforcement policy, which sets out a number of principles around what officers should be doing to investigate compliance. Now, in this instance, the legal advice and our review indicated that, look, generally speaking, what's happened stacks up with the planning scheme. So we've got one discretion in this case, which is around proximity to the waterway. But beyond that, it ticks the boxes. So from a compliance perspective and looking at our policy, we wouldn't make them stop operating or remove the work or anything like that, because that wouldn't be a proportional response and would be a very expensive exercise to enforce that, because that would be a court action. So that's our general approach. We do have a policy that guides that. Each case is different though, so precedent isn't probably a realistic scenario. But I think, yeah, the main thing is a lot of our compliance is around education as well. So look, in this case, what I've been told is that the owner operator wasn't aware that lights would require planning approval. And, that's not the correct view, but you can understand that people don't have a full understanding of the planning access you must do this, building access you must do Y, when we're talking about something that's a little bit out of the ordinary. So it's not building a structure or building a road, it's putting some lights along that walkway.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Nichols.
Thank you. Through the chair. The lighting situation, is the shrouding only relevant to the tall black structures, or is it relevant to all the lights throughout the entire facility? For instance, the ones along the cement footpath that link the restaurant and the administration block.
Through the chair, those other lights on the footpaths and car parking, etc.
That's all the lights.
No, they were approved in previous permits,
right.
so we're only dealing with the new ones.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Gatehouse.
Can I ask how tall the freestanding lights are, the solar lights are, and are they all 170 of them? I think there is 30 in the water in the wetlands catchment area and 140 beyond there. Are they all tall, or are some at ground level with shrouds? Because the picture given on page 7 actually looks like it's quite a tall structure, even though it has got a 150mm shroud around it. Is it still?
Yeah.
Are they all that one?
Yeah, through the chair, they're all identical, and they're all 2.5 meters high, something in that order.
Okay, so it's quite tall.
Yeah. And I should say too, you mentioned the waterway. Something I should have mentioned to the previous question was, in this, we've got an issue here where the waterway, the distances from the waterway that were mapped in the overlay aren't what they should have been. So it should have been mapped as a bigger distance. than what it is. So it's another instance where the education side of it was the owner rightfully kind of wasn't really aware that there was a waterway overlay applying to this area. So that's one of the relevant issues.
Yes, councillor Gados.
So, through the chair, Jane, so was the mapping, just to make it clear, was the mapping wrong and they didn't apply it and it's now being corrected? So can that be applied in retrospect? So can the correct distance be applied in retrospect by us?
Yeah, through the chair. So, I guess we're in the process with that for zoning from the last meeting.
Yes.
Before that, that's all planning scheme amendment. That's in process. But yeah, the issue was the mapped overlay that's on this map
Yes.
showed 40-metre setback.
Right.
And that was something that was picked up on the original design drawings as well. But when you delve right into the scheme, because it's a ramp to a wetland, the distance is actually 100 metres.
Yes.
So that was something we picked up, Shannon picked up through the assessment process, because originally when it was submitted, we thought it complied. We didn't think that was a relevant consideration, and so it was assessed initially as a permitted application. But once you delve into that, we found that discretion, and it's become this discretionary application. It's in now.
Right, okay. And I've actually, sorry, Mr. Chair, another question. I've actually lost the comment, but in one of the, there's a comment about the running operation not being on a scenic drive or a scenic roadway. It's clearly visible from the road. Does a highway or a road or a route have to be classified as a scenic drive to then apply the conditions around it?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so the scheme has, I guess, the option or the mechanism there to have generally 100-metre wide buffer along the highway as a scenic road corridor. So that option isn't taken up in our planning scheme because it wasn't taken up in any of the prior planning schemes either. Yeah.
Right, thank you. Thank you.
Shane, further to that question, that means it's an opportunity that's still available, but it wasn't available in the transition from the old to the new scheme.
Yeah, great.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Yes, thank
I've
you.
just got one more question. The federal government have produced a document, quite a substantial document, recommendations on light pollution, but they don't seem to be applied to any planning scheme, not just the Tasmanian planning scheme. In the future, when planning schemes are reviewed and hopefully government recommendations are applied to planning schemes across the country, do you see that local councils can either include their own bylaws, or the councils can then look at a new scheme with retrospect, and we can avoid this situation where we have light pollution in environmentally sensitive areas and other agricultural areas where light pollution is detrimental to certain agricultural activities?
Yeah, through the chair, I guess it's potentially something that could be included in the state planning provisions. But it's a type of issue that, especially in terms of a wildlife, migratory bird impact, yes, there's some guidelines, but I guess beyond that, the issue's not that well understood.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be something that would need a lot of sort of.
Yeah, that's
Advice.
the concern. It's sort of an emerging pollutant, so the science is still quite new.
Yeah, True. And I guess the other part of like pit water, there's a lot of light sources all through pit water. So, I guess a question that someone's community would be whether, the horse is bolted, so to speak, or whether meaningful positive outcomes could still happen.
Okay, thank you. And further to that, in the response to the representations, there's the phrase used, the works are appropriate in context to the approved use and do not intensify it. How is that considered? Does that include things like the issues that Councillor Gagos just referred to in terms of environmental impacts or impacts on agriculture, etc., or is it purely to do with the building works themselves? How does that? How does the scheme? What does that mean in the scheme?
Yes. So intensification, or terms related to it, it's kind of a tricky point as to whether a lawfully approved use, because it's more related to use rather than development. So lawfully approved use, whether it was a restaurant or a pub or a music accommodation, whether things have changed so much that a new permit is required. So there's a degree of things that are not sort of fixed in stone when you get a permit. And I guess in this case, I would say it's not an intensification because people guests are allowed to walk through the site, so it's not changing that use. It's just a related part of that being some lights to improve their safety and amenity. So it's different and it's something new, but we would say it's not intensification in a planning speak.
I see. Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, just one.
Yes, Councillor.
You go.
After you.
Okay.
Councillor
It's quick, going to be quick. The siting of the gazebos, was there any research into where they were sited? And was there any testing of the structures for strength, and also were they built to a standard or were they just bombed?
Through the chair, I couldn't tell you that. This is just not. Yeah, we would normally leave those considerations up to the building process afterwards.
Okay, yeah.
So we do need to follow up with them and make sure that if they're basically if they're big enough, they'll need some sort of building certification.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if they're that size or not.
Right. Okay. And just one quick one. The pink windmill goes, is that right? And the other one stays?
Yeah, I think it was red and now it's faded to pink. Yeah, that's going.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Torrenti.
Thank you. I'm waiting patiently. Just a couple of comments first. Page 4, the proximity of the 30 lights and there's one gazebo that's within the sensitive area, and it says that will have no unacceptable impact on natural assets. I totally disagree with that. I mean, it's visual pollution, especially at night, well, that's my feeling. I totally disagree. Page 6, the NRM officer hasn't made a comment at all, which surprises me. I thought he may have had something to say. And the pink windmill that was just referred to, that is now faded, is to be removed. And also on page 17, it says that it wasn't part of the DA. Why? Can I ask why?
Through the chair, because their intention is to remove it. Yeah,
So
they
will remove it, or we don't need a condition for them to remove it.
No. Well, they've in response to our compliance letter of intention to take compliance action, that they responded by saying, look, we will seek retrospective approval for X, Y, Z, and that other than we've got no intention, we're going to remove it. So we'll just follow up with them to make sure that happens in the next couple of
I
months.
just hope they don't remove it and move it up close to the road or something like that. Relocate it.
No, they've got a clear understanding it needs to go.
I'll have to say I've had so many comments asking what's the significance of the pink windmill down there, and talking about the scenic road that Councillor Gatehouse mentioned. I can recall people stopping on the other highway to take photos. I haven't seen anyone taking photos there for quite some time, since all that paraphernalia has gone in there. It's just completely ruined, I believe, anyway, and so do a lot of others, the area, that beautiful scenic view across to the mountain. And I would like to see artificial lighting, us discuss at a workshop to see what we can do, because I think there are going to be more applications coming through, and we'll be in the same situation if there isn't anything in our planning scheme that we can address the situation. So, Shane, if we could, in the very near future, workshop it and see what we can do.
Thank you, Councillor Miro.
Thank you. Further to, anyway, I'll start again. Page 11, it says here, down on the page, says one of the gazebos and some of the lights are located within a waterway and coastal protection area. However, the proposal is considered to avoid adverse impacts on natural assets and to satisfy the performance criteria given in that. It seems that here the impact on natural assets is focused on only the building, so only the gazebo, and not so much on the use of that built area. So the impact here is not just about building a structure. The impact is the use that it will provide because of the new building. So people will be coming here, using it, and it will completely change that coastal protection area into hospitality. So how come it's been assessed only in light of the building, not on the new use?
Can you just scroll up just a smidge?
Page 11, yeah.
Through the chair. Yeah, so
It's a bit down below.
The main words here relevant to your question are it's buildings and works within a waterway and coastal protection area. So there's no reference to the use of that land in the state planning provisions. So we are purely focused on the effect of buildings and works on the waterway and coastal protection area, not land use or no related use issues.
Thank you. Just a follow-up question to that. Isn't this whole DA on change of use of an area to a more intensified use because of the light, because of the traffic of people, and because of the gazebo? So it becomes a very active space to be used. So that's the whole point of developing in this way.
Through the chair, the assessment. So the application doesn't intensify the use, which we mentioned before. So we are in the planning scheme. We are looking at the gazebos of buildings. The lights would be works, not building, but they are work. So that is what we're limited to looking at. So it is an assessment of the buildings and the works, not about the use. Because how they're using the land has been established under prior permits.
Thank you.
So, and those prior permits specifically recognise that patrons would have access to the whole property. There were some conditions included on there about the operator of the premise giving establishing some site rules really about where people can and cannot go. So that was certainly all acknowledged, and that's something that they've done. So yeah, that question's already been asked and answered when it was first approved. So now we're just building some more.
Anyone else? Questions? Can I go? Oh,
I have a question first and then we'll come back. On that, one of the representations talks about the use, the agricultural use, bettering agricultural use, and there's also a mention of the permit being on a title, not that's smaller than the area that's applied in this DA. Can you explain what that refers to and what the actual situation is?
I can't really explain that, to be frank. Yeah, the original permit was for the whole of the property.
Okay, thanks. Yes, so the representation inferred that the permit only applied to part of, because there are several titles, is that more than one title? Something, that's how I read it, I suppose.
Yeah. I think there are multiple titles, or at least at the time there were. But no, we have staff have undertaken an audit of those original permits and conditions, and so on. So yeah, part of that is sort of quite clear. Those original permits are the whole of the property.
Thank you. Councillor.
Thank you. Another question, Shane. So I've looked through everything and read all the recommendations, and I still haven't really understand the reason that they're applying for retrospective approval only a partial part of the development. So they will be removing the windmills, yet keeping the lights. So what's the reason for that? You mentioned that it's expensive. So something like that. I'm not quite sure. I'm not understanding really well that.
Through the chair, I'm not sure if I can answer it for you, but the compliance notice that was issued was this sort of very much standard, and basically said, look, owner, you've done something without a permit. We think you should have gotten a permit, and your two options are to either take away everything that you've done without a permit, or seek retrospective approval. And they're, I guess, they're doing a combination of sort of for whatever reasons. I think certainly they were told that the peak windmill was very odd and unusual and unsightly, and they're certainly encouraged to remove that. And so I think that's maybe why they've done it that way. I think too, it obviously they're not functional windmills. They're not, it doesn't really serve any real purpose being there, at least, you can say with the one nearer to the play area that it looks less out of context.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And the other question is, so further to that, Shane, what would happen? So we're seeing here, what would happen if this gets approved? Then those lights stay, the windmills go, the gazebos and everything, and they would have to put some caps to the light. That's pretty much right. And what would happen if this doesn't get approved? So what's the process that this would follow?
Through the chair, that is a good question, because ultimately, if this is declined, situation where there's works that need a permit that don't have a permit, and we need to take some legal advice on what we reasonably could do in response to that, which is actually a pretty common scenario when it comes to planning compliance. If we're being asked, should we take it to the end of the process, to the court, we need to understand how much that's going to cost, what the likelihood of success would be. I think certainly the initial advice to us was there's not a lot in the planning scheme that's dealing with the issues that are being put to council that are of concern. So taking action to remove them or something would seem at this point in time unachievable, but we would need to take legal advice on that.
Can I just add, Chair, the first step is whether the applicant would appeal. If council's planning authority doesn't issue a permit and instead refuses the application, then there's appeal rights to not only the applicant but also to the representatives. And similar to what Shane was saying, the whole crux of whether we're pursuing enforcement action or in the tribunal defending a refusal, it all comes back to what the scheme provisions are and the advice that we had that Shane saw from our legal advisors a while back, quite a while ago now, around the opportunity to take action or not, was that there aren't really very strong grounds in the planning scheme that would support a refusal of application, albeit it's retrospective. But you can see in the report that Shannon did as a senior planner, there's very few scheme standards that are related to what they're applying for. So carrying that forward to the tribunal, whether we're there defending a refusal or we're there trying to take action against to get them removed, it's not a case where councils are going in on strong grounds at all.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have one more question, which is on page 4, and I think this might have been something that Councillor Tremendous referred to earlier. The works within the waterway and coastal protection area will not have an unnecessary or unacceptable impact on natural assets. How was that ascertained? I'm unclear from the report how that was decided.
To a large extent, that's just recognising the land use as it is now, which is pasture. Really, there's no native vegetation removed. The works themselves are contained, so the erosion and other impacts are just very
So,
unlikely to
I
arise.
see. So the natural assets refer to the physical landscape, not to the living, the fauna and flora as such.
No, flora and fauna is relevant, but in saying that, this is the pasture area. It's part of the farming operation. So there was no loss of native vegetation, and other. So the waterway generally considers the natural values there for native vegetation or either bank stability or erosion issues and to be addressed. Yeah, in this case, we're satisfied that it meets the test.
Thank you.
I should through Chair point out that the bottom of page 11, the top of page 12, the rationale that Shannon's provided us, particular to that matter as to why it's considered to satisfy the performance criteria.
I see. Thank you. Is there any other?
I just had one more
Councillor.
question. Shane, are you satisfied that the steel baffle or sheet that they're putting around the lights will diffuse the situation a little bit in one way or the other?
Yeah, through the chair, I think the point of the shroud is just to minimise any outward light spills, so it just makes the light more focused at the point downwards.
downward.
Yeah, so it should be effective.
Is Councillor Training? Councillor Training? Councillor
I'm finished.
Sorry, just one thing triggered by Councillor Tronis's comment there. There is the 150mm shroud going around them, but is there can we stipulate the angle to which that shroud is put around them? Is it in terms of like 45 degrees or?
What I understand to be is just vertical panel. We've got a good picture. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so the light.
It's just an extension of that existing box.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a
Yes.
further question, if I
Thank you.
may. Thank you. So I'm still trying to understand the implications of approving or rejecting this. And so I'm still a bit confused about, for example, if this is, if there's maybe a question for the general manager. So if this were to be modified, the recommendations, it needs to be modified, for example, to remove all or part of the lights. Would that need like a motion to change the recommendation and, for example, remove half the lights or all of them, or does it just what this is more an admin.
Yeah, through the chair, I mean, the recommendations there that it's going to move in a second or so. And the recommendations largely just in terms of conditions that modify what's being proposed is just the addition of the shrouds on each of the lights. So if the planning authority want to make further modifications, it would require either that the motion gets put as is, or the recommendation gets put as is, I should say. Alternatively, if someone wishes to move an amendment to the recommendation, they can do so, but that's a matter for the council as to what they want to, whether they want to amend what's proposed or if they don't want to approve it.
Oh, I see. So there's both options, let's say. Okay.
I should caution the council only as far as if the the ultimate decision of the planning authority is to refuse application, and there needs to be provided with that, the ground for refusal that relates specifically to the planning scheme provision that it's said it doesn't comply with.
And that's what Shane was mentioning, that it wasn't that clear in the planning scheme.
Well, through Chair, it's more that our legal advisors are of the view that there are strong grounds in the planning scheme provisions that would support a refusal of the application, albeit in this case a retrospective, but even if they weren't in existence and they were applying prior to installing, then the advice would be the same from our legal advice.
Is the loss of amenity to the neighboring properties that have, and all the the locals that have written their submissions, isn't that a ground enough that is affecting other properties and in their agricultural activities?
Well, the need to be through the chairman, I don't know, Shane's the expert in this and Shannon, not myself, but from experience, it needs to be, the fact that there's representations is one thing, but similarly, whether it's the representations that identify issues, or if councils identify issues, or if the planner doing the assessment, or other experts identify issues, they all need to come back to the basis, which is the plan scheme provision. So that's what often gets tested at the tribunal through an expert evidence and cross-examination. So that's where you have to have a basis for your position, whether you're in support or not in support. It's always, the meter changes depending on what you're applying for and what the zone is, and then what the use and development standards are in the planning scheme. So in this case, it's a rare type of application. It's not common. The use isn't that common, the scale isn't that common, and the zone isn't that common. So not surprisingly, the scheme isn't particularly verbose on standards that relate to lighting in the ag zone. In fact, there's almost no standards other than the fact that a portion of these lights are picked up because they're within proximity to the waterway. Otherwise, the scheme is largely silent on assessment standards.
And that's one of my main concerns, exactly what you're mentioning, that part of this DA is touching on an area that is a coastal protection area, and that should be protected. But there's here in the recommendation here, there's a however, and that's where I'm not, I apologize with the planners, but is on that I'm not in agreement with the recommendation.
Thank you. Are there any other final comments or questions? Thank you. So we'll put the motion to accept the recommendation. All in favour? Against? Carried. 3-2. Thank you very much. That's the end of the meeting.